Hey there, folks. I'm Matt Hansen.
And I'm John Johnson.
And you're listening to Planes, Trains, and Comic Books, the podcast where we discuss favorites we've reread, comics we want to read, and everything in between.
And here's the comic we picked this week.
Well, hello there.
Welcome back.
Yeah. Another episode of Planes, Trains, and Comic Books in the history books. So how was your week this week, John?
Good. Were we supposed to read something?
We were supposed to read something. I don't remember what it is, but no, I'm just joking. This week we read X-Men Days of Future Past, and not just the one issue, which we found out was actually just one issue is named that. It was the whole trade, which had about 6 issues.
And then 6 issues.
Filler? I don't know if you call it filler.
It's
setup
in association with similar and the same characters, but yeah, some of it definitely didn't seem like, especially because there was stuff afterwards, the main story, and then you're like, well, what? Where's the resolution? Like, nobody's going to talk about this?
So we're just going past the whole future travel. Kitty Pryde was old Kitty Pryde for a while and stuff. So it was a weird. Oh no, it's not a weird. It was interesting and also very nostalgic.
Yes,
it felt. I wanted to hear the like every time I turned on a page or whatever and turned a page. I
just listened to the theme on loop while I read it.
On loop the whole time. Yeah, that's what I should have done. I didn't think about that. I tried to download the actual song, couldn't find it. There's nowhere where it's at the actual original. Because they have, Metal Guy plays all 90s tunes or like animated themes. I don't want that. I want some Shredder playing it. I want the original crappy MIDI guitar sound. So yeah, it was very like nostalgic in that way. It made me remind me of the animated show from the 90s, but missing some of the 90s characters because this comic was written in like 1980.
Yeah.
So it was pretty, it was different, but it had the same feel as the 90s cartoon because that cartoon took a lot of storylines from this Chris Claremont run. So the Chris Claremont was the writer, and he's like, you would know him. He's the writer of everything good that was from X-Men in like the 90s cartoon, in the movies, like Dark Phoenix, Wolverine's history, all that shit. Like Weapon X, all that stuff. That's all Chris Claremont, all cool stuff. From what I understand, I haven't read like all of it, but I've read some of it. And then the art was John Byrne, who's a great classic creator, great artist. So everything was like pretty solid.
Yeah, all of those character designs, like that looks like exactly how
it looked exactly how it should look, and that's why I also was nostalgic because I was like, oh, that's great. It looks just like it should. And then the other thing was this like the storyline or the writing, I guess, was it's on the edge of old school where it's almost unreadable. like in the Silver Age when it's like, I have to say every thought that these people are talking about or, are thinking in their heads.
Yeah. And
also then them say it out loud to everybody. And then the pictures show what they're saying, what they're thinking.
Yeah. Oh, no, I wonder what's going to happen. I need to pay really close attention to Storm over there and make sure she doesn't need help. Hey, Storm, do you need help over there?
And then there's a thing that said, and then he looks at Storm, and it's like, yeah, we get it. The fucking drawing shows what he's saying and what he's thinking. Just have one of those say it. But it was on the edge of that where that was like the 60s where you read old Stan Lee, you're like, I can't read that. There's so much like narration and then dialogue bubbles and then thought bubbles and then like you can kind of see a sliver of Jack Kirby artwork behind it. It's like, oh my god, I can't read this. So this was like on the edge of that where like the story is good enough and it wasn't as bad as like the old 60s Silver Age stuff, and those are fun in their own right. Like if you know what you're getting into, that's fine. Have you ever read like old Silver Age?
Oh yeah, like I've read the first Fantastic Four run, and yeah, there's a lot of blocks over some really nice art.
Yeah,
yeah, it's all hidden.
I mean, yeah, exactly. Everything's hidden.
it's like in the top corner is like 4:30 at the Baxter Building, and then a little bit further down, you can barely see the Baxter Building behind like that, and like Reed thinking about talking to Sue, and then Sue talking, hey, honey, and it's
yeah. It's weird how they thought that you needed that much explanation before you could understand what's going on. So this was like on the border of that, but it was enough. It was like just a little too much, but not annoyingly so.
Yeah, it had moments, but in general, I thought it flowed very well.
Still. Yeah, and also like you can pick which one of the. You're like, I get it. I'm just gonna read the thought bubble and then the voice instead of the narrator also saying stuff. But the weird thing about this trade, because I thought it was like the whole trade was going to be this epic storyline, but Days of Future Past is only one of those issues.
Yep.
And it's the whole storyline of Days of Future Past in this one issue. Now, that issue was pretty badass. And I guess they were like, this needs to be in a trade, but we can't just put one issue in a trade. So let's make it about Kitty Pryde and her whole run. So basically the first 4 or 5 issues is kind of the introduction of Kitty Pryde. And it's actually, I think it's like all these issues are concurrent like with each other. So
yeah, they all flowed together still. So
well, but I mean, the storyline was actually like this was happening exactly as it read. Like it wasn't skipping around years or anything. I think it was like issue 139, 140, 141, 142, 143, and then Days of Future Past was 144 or something like that. So it made sense, like everything that was going on in those issues. But it was like, why do we care if they're visiting hell or what? Like it was just really random. The first issue was like, oh, they're visiting hell, and then the second issue was like, we're gonna go to Canada to visit Alpha Flight, and then when they do that, they visit. The Alpha Flight is the Canadian X-Men, basically. So pretty much useless.
Oh, hey, now you don't know. No offense to any of our Canadian listeners.
Yeah.
Alpha Flight.
None of you.
None of you listen.
They don't have internet up there, dude. I don't know what you're talking about. They're fishing or looking at moose or whatever they do up there. Yeah. So the issue itself was pretty awesome. I know. You saw the movie, right? The live action?
My background, like I watched a lot of the X-Men cartoons, obviously in the 90s, and I read some X-Men back then, but I can't say for sure, all of them. Like I don't remember all of the main story points of it. I do know enough that I know, enough of the X-Men characters to get me by. But yeah, my main background on this story was the movie, which I take with a grain of salt. I know that they pull elements in those movies.
This story was nothing.
Yeah, and then after reading the story, I was like, oh wow, that movie it was not the same thing at all.
Same premise of we have to go back in time to stop someone from assassinating a senator. But that's it. Like the rest of it was like, oh no, none of this is from.
Yeah, none of the same. Like half the same people aren't doing. It was wild.
Kitty Pryde was in it, right? Wasn't she?
Yeah, she's the one, but she's the one who helps send them back. She's not.
Oh, that's right. She's not the one that goes.
Wolverine
is the one that goes back. Well, because they know what their bread and butter
exactly.
is, and that is Hugh Jackman.
Hugh Jackman, please take your shirt off.
Wait, was Hugh Jackman in that one?
Yeah.
Oh, he was. Okay.
Yeah, he's he ties the old X-Men movies and the new ones together.
See, I watched it, but it was so long ago, I forgot.
I think it's the best one of all of them. But anyway.
Yeah, that makes sense. But then also the 90s animated cartoon, I was like, I wonder if they did a remake of this. And they did. I have the DVD of it. And I didn't get to watch it before we did this podcast. But yeah, we should totally check that out sometime. But it's probably closer. But I do know it's not the same cast, right? Because in this one, they had Colossus, they had Nightcrawler, and they had Kitty Pryde, but they did not, and they had Wolverine, but he was in his Frank Miller 80s costume.
Yeah.
So he didn't have the yellow and the classic Wolverine.
Yeah, the multi-brown.
Yeah, this was like a dark brown one. But in the show, I guarantee Gambit's there.
Oh yeah.
And
probably
and with
Jubilee
the new
somewhere
Jim
in the
Lee designed costumes from the 90s comics. I'm sure they all had pouches and belts and straps and all that stuff. So, yeah, this one was interesting. Oh no, you were saying that the last issue, because so after this, the Days of Future Past, there was some random issue that was like, oh, they go to the island and there's Sauron, the pterodactyl man or whatever.
Yeah, I had to make sure I was still reading the same
the one
trade.
That was like. A monster in the mansion, or was that one before it?
I'm trying to remember now.
I thought the monster in the mansion was the one after. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's the one right before. Anyway, there's another issue in it where there's like a alien, I guess, or like a demon from another dimension comes, and Kitty Pryde's left in the mansion by herself on Christmas Eve, and it was supposed to be a surprise. Like they're like, "You stay."
That is
young.
the last one. It's the Christmas.
That's the last one, right? Yeah. So, so this was the one that comes directly after this issue of X-Men. Has nothing.
Yeah, here's Days of Future Past in all its glory. Okay, anyway, so Christmas story.
So I don't know why they set it up like that, but they did. And this was basically just a Kitty Pryde trade paperback. It was like the introduction of Kitty Pryde, a really good issue that just happens to be in the middle of that everybody likes, and then the Christmas issue. So I think they were like, let's call it Days of Future Past because this will sell. A Kitty Pryde trade won't. So not necessarily that it wouldn't. People love Kitty Pryde. She's a great character. But just not as good as, remember that awesome Days of Future Past issue of comics? Well, here you go. So, basically, you want to tell the story of Days of Future Past, like that issue?
Yeah, so same basic setup is that in the future, the mutants have, most of the X-Men that you know are dead, because they had the Sentinels were created, and then originally the Sentinels were kind of like enforcing and keeping things, I guess, more together, but then they kind of...
I think they were like set to stun, basically.
Yeah, but then from there, they kind of went on their own and I guess became more...
No, it was because the senator got killed and then the government passed like legislation.
But I thought the Sentinels were controlling like everything on their own at some point.
I think because of after a while, the Sentinels became like sentient or something.
Yeah, that's what it means.
But at first, I mean, the reason why they get power or whatever, how they even get to where they are is because
the senator dies. Yeah.
The government, the senator died. The government passed legislation. The Sentinels got more power or whatever and could kill anything and track mutants down, even non-mutants. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
Where it's like the Fantastic Four or other superpowered people. They just, they could get by, or they got killed, but the like Franklin Richards.
Yeah, that was one of the weird. I thought that was weird. Is like they have a couple X-Men. Like Magneto is there, and Cyclops.
It's Storm.
Storm. You get it, or how do you say her? Aurora. Yeah, that you have to call her that because that's what everybody keeps calling her. Reading Aurora like 3 times in a row.
That's hard. That's a hard name to say, but a beautiful name.
Yes, but it was interesting to see that. Yeah, and then Franklin Richards was part of it. Yeah. It's like, oh, okay.
I think he was just there to die.
Yeah, basically.
They're like, who can we kill? Let's put the Fantastic Four kid in this, but he's like 40 now, and he can die because no one cares about him in the X-Men comics. So, basically, it's a post-apocalyptic world in the future.
Yeah, they all the ones that are remaining now, if they're alive, they have these little collars that inhibit their powers, so they really can't do much of anything. But all the X-Men, for the most part, that are still alive, are get together and they are figuring out a way to, because they're being hunted down now.
Well, they can live free. They can walk around as long as they wear their collars. And they have to wear a shirt that has an M on it so everybody knows they're a mutant. But the cities are like totally, there's no civilization anymore.
Yeah.
They're just like bandits running around and, beating up people and stuff. So some of the X-Men get a plan, or the old X-Men get a plan along with Franklin Richards and Magneto. And the plan is there is a psychic mutant there. They figure if they can disable her collar, is that what it is?
Mm-hmm.
They can have her send Kitty Pryde as an older woman, like a 35-year-old woman, back in time into Kitty Pryde from the past.
Yeah. Oh, let me put it in context of time frame. This is the apocalyptic year of 2013.
Yeah, 2013. So it's 7 years ago.
7 years ago.
This happened, and it was very interesting. We don't remember it because it is an alternative timeline.
Yes.
If Back to the Future taught us anything, it is that. So, but yeah, the future world of 2013. So she goes from 2013, sends old Kitty Pryde's consciousness into young Kitty Pryde from 1980, into her body. So in the old days, or in the 1980 Kitty Pryde, she just passes out in the middle of training, and then they're like, "What happened?" and no one really knows. And then she just wakes up again, but she's like she has the mind of a 30 or 40-year-old Kitty Pryde. So that's.
And nobody believes her at first. She's like, no, let me tell you guys. No, as you'd expect. They're like, you just passed out. You've got crazy things going on.
Yeah.
So it's not until they meet up with Xavier where she's like, no, Xavier, look in my head so you can see everything I've seen. And he does. And he's like, oh, crap.
Yeah. And so that's basically her mission is to stop the assassination from happening so that the new mutant laws don't get passed and the Sentinels don't rise to power and all that stuff. But I was surprised how like brutal the Sentinels were, just like killing people.
Yeah, the cover of this issue literally says, in this one, everyone dies. And it's like, okay, yeah. But, I mean,
pretty much.
Marvel's just like, no, that's really what happens.
No, fucking Wolverine.
Yeah, his death was the craziest.
Yeah, so there's an older Wolverine, right? And he's got like gray hair and stuff. And he gets blasted because he's like, I snuck up on the Sentinel. And the Sentinel's like, dummy, I knew you were there the whole time. And he shoots him with his kill laser, I guess. And he fucking just vaporizes Wolverine's whole body.
Yeah, like the exoskeleton falls like it looks like a Terminator body. That's all you see. And it's like, shit, Wolverine died.
I was hoping it'd be like the
grow
row back or whatever.
I guess if you kill all of the skin, there's no way for it to grow back.
Right, yeah, they'd have to leave. Well, so technically, isn't that metal just over the bone?
Yeah.
So isn't the bone still have marrow and stuff?
That is true.
Regenerate.
We make our own rules.
The brain is inside of that. So yeah, who knows?
That would be cool to have like say a later panel of like Wolverine, just the metal skeleton.
I'm surprised they don't have exoskeleton Wolverine. That's our idea. We copyright that.
Yeah, nobody else can take that. No, Marvel.
Yeah,
we said it first.
And if you do, you owe us money.
Lots of money.
Yeah, we'll call Neil Adams and get him on the case for it. Yeah, so that's basically the story. Is just her trying to make sure the Brotherhood of Mutants, who's now instead of run by Magneto, is run by.
Yeah, it's still Mystique's still bad. Mystique is still running it, but I like the cavalcade of characters for that. It was the Blob, Pyro, and then Destiny. I was not familiar with, but I guess she knows. She's called Destiny because she can see the future and know people's destinies. Mm-hmm. And Avalanche.
I never heard of him.
I hadn't either, but apparently, like he can touch or like use some of his mind a little bit, and like if he touches something or thinks of something really hard and it's close to him, he can make it like it's all crumbling and an avalanche is starting.
It's a free fall of an avalanche. It's the dumbest character. The Blob is the only character I'm like, oh, I know who that is. I mean, Pyro was in the movie, but his costume was so lame.
It was not, yeah.
It was the lamest thing I've ever seen. And then, and of course, Mystique was there. So basically, they just have to, once they believe Kitty Pryde, they stop. They have to fight the Brotherhood of Evil in the middle of like this. It was weird because they said it was in the Pentagon. But then they were doing like a meeting and like it was at Congress inside because there's all the senators and everything at a board or inside like this chambers and they're testifying. But it said it was in the Pentagon, so I don't understand why it was there.
It's a big room in the Pentagon. You don't know how many floors they have in the Pentagon.
I don't know. No one does, John.
It's
true. The Pentagon. But yeah, so the Brotherhood of the Mutants attacks while they're doing like these mutant testimonies, I guess, in front of Congress to try to either ease up on mutant registry or whatever, or mutant laws, or make them harder. They're trying to prove the point of who should do what. Yeah, so
the senator is there, and he's arguing, obviously, for these stricter laws. And then Charles is there with...
Xavier's there, yeah. With...
Who's he there with? Goodness.
I don't know.
His caretaker.
It's not. It's not Jean.
It's not Jean
because she just died. The first issue of this we forgot to say was a basic full rundown from issue 1 of X-Men to what just happened issue before.
Oh yeah, they spoon fed you hey, you like X-Men, but you've not read anything. It's okay, we'll take you through it.
The best thing is it's like, okay, so here's the X-Men, and they had Charles Xavier got 7 kids, and there were these people. And they were mutants, and he trained them. And then the Shi'ar Empire like just does like this epic space battle in like 20 pages. It's like, remember when all that happened? It was so much information just shoved at you. Like, they'll understand this, right? That'll catch them up. I'm like, no one, and it had nothing to do with the 5 issues or whatever. So,
The only thing is Jean Grey died, and then the reason that Cyclops
on
isn't there
vacation,
is Cyclops is like, I'm taking a break.
Yeah, and so that like they could have just said like in the last issue, Cyclops took a break, like, but the first issue just had to explain all of X-Men lore for the last 30 years, or no, at this time it would have been like the last 20 years, and yeah, so Cyclops was on a break, so he wasn't there. I can't remember who it was. It might have been Storm.
Oh, Storm's the leader now. Yeah.
Yeah, it might have been Storm that was with him. I don't know.
Oh no, Storm comes in later. I don't remember
Okay,
who's
so
with him. But
someone was with him. Who cares?
Yeah.
Someone was with Xavier in Congress. They're testifying, and the Brotherhood of Mutants attacks. Yeah. You know, they're trying to kill the senator, and then X-Men come and they're attacking, and everybody's like, we can't tell the difference between the good mutants and the bad ones. And so the government sends the military in too to fight, and they're like shooting Colossus. And so this team, by the way, this is like, I guess after the Dark Phoenix saga, the team is Colossus, Kitty Pryde, Nightcrawler, Storm, and Wolverine. Am I missing anybody?
And the psychic was Sprite? No, Sprite is Kitty
Sprite
Pryde.
is Kitty Pryde.
Yeah.
They don't give her that name for very long.
No, they don't.
I think that's it. I'm pretty sure that's it. But yeah, like, so that's the team that's fighting now, and so the government's like shooting Colossus, and they don't know. They're dumb, I guess. So they end up beating the Brotherhood, and they beat them, and then it just kind of was crazy.
While this is going on, you'd also, because it's the Days of Future Past.
Oh yeah, it's showing what's going on in the future.
It shows what's in the future, and in the future they have a plan. They're going to break into the Baxter Building because the Sentinels have taken that over because all the super technology there, and they're going to break in and I guess kill the main, how the Sentinels can track everything, and hopefully that will stop them, at least slow things down while Kitty's in the past trying to fix things.
Maybe they'll be able to rebuild if the Sentinels aren't there to kill them all.
So they break in and they just start dropping like flies. Yeah. Like they might get one Sentinel and then like, yeah, we got him, and then bam, like someone dies. Like Storm gets like a javelin, like some kind of spear.
Yeah, she gets shot with like a spear
through her chest, and like bam, she's dead.
Yeah. So pretty much they just murder everybody. I was when they killed Wolverine, I was like, what? And then I remembered, oh yeah, this is like a future story, so it's not really in continuity like that. That happens in the future, not right now. So, but I was like, oh, this is like a badass. Like they're just gonna go all out since it's not really. They're never gonna have to go back to it. So they're doing that, and pretty much everybody dies. And they had already said like, well, we don't even know if that's gonna change our world. If she succeeds, it might just split off and do another timeline, like Back to the Future. So. Thank you. Once again, Back to the Future taught me everything I know about time travel. So when you go back to the past, it just branches off to another alternate universe, basically. So we don't even know if that worked. I think it just leaves it hanging, right? Don't they all die?
Yeah, they from their end it shows that they pretty much all die, and then it shows Kitty like goes back to she leaves the body because
right, and the young one's like, what happened? And they never cut back to Kitty being like, oh, everybody's dead. Huh. I guess it worked. I don't know. Because even if they succeeded... Oh, no, I guess if they succeeded, everything was supposed to go back. It would change back to normal.
Yeah, I guess when she woke up in her body, she'd be like, oh, look, everybody's alive around me, like a Wizard of Oz or something.
I guess you're just supposed to assume that's what happened. Because they never show you what happened in the future. Did it work or not? I don't know. I guess they didn't want to, like, depress all the children. Like, Wolverine's dead? No. But, yeah. So yeah, they just have Kitty Pryde wake up and be like, that was crazy. And they're like, yeah, we just fought. And then, like, it's like the senator's like, I guess there are good mutants or whatever. We should have a talk more, Charles. Yeah. And then that's it.
Oh, but then the end of that episode, or the end of that comic, so they're like, oh yeah, the senator's like, okay, maybe. And then it shows like another location, I guess, later on down the road in the Pentagon, and they're like, they have a meeting with Sebastian Shaw,
right?
And they're like, it basically like
it's just
it stopped that, but it's still something else is something else moved that forward eventually. Right. This is like it's like the Terminator, like, oh, you can postpone Judgment Day, but like
Judgment Day is coming.
Exactly. That's how it felt to me, at least.
There is no fate but what we make, John. so, and apparently you can't stop those Terminator movies either because they keep coming out, even if no one wants them.
As long as Arnold is here.
As long as, and maybe even after with that fakening stuff.
That's true.
That's right. There's got to be enough.
If I think of any, just as a side note, of any actors that would be like, yeah, you can use my likeness after they're dead, I'm pretty sure it would be Arnold Schwarzenegger. I don't know.
Well,
I just feel like that's true.
He doesn't have a lot of speaking lines in most of his movies. So, I mean, you could do like a Conan where he's just a brooding, barbarian, and he doesn't have to say anything, but he's all buff and everything. He looks like an old school Arnold. So, we could do that. Anyway, back to the important stuff. So, that's basically this whole issue. It was one issue story. It was solid. It was good. I really liked the issue. What did you think, John? What would you give this one?
Yeah, I liked it. Like I said, with all I get the backstory with Kitty Pryde, and that's fun.
It was fun. It set it up.
Yeah,
it set up like, oh, this is exactly where we're at in the X-Men timeline. It could have been a little bit shorter. It
could have been, and then the after story is like, I get it. So Cyclops comes back, and there was a weird alien thing, and but it was like, okay, we finished Days of Future Past without really giving you a resolution, and here's another.
I think it was more of we had 4 issues, and then Days of Future Past was issue 5, and a trade is 6 issues long.
I guess so. They're just like, this is the next one, and it's around the holidays, so here you go.
It was a fun Kitty Pryde story. This is where that's why I said this is actually more of a Kitty Pryde trade than an actual Days of Future Past trade, because there's only one issue of Days of Future Past. You can't do much with that. Maybe they could have put it in some other like future time traveling storylines or something, like have them all in one, like the time traveler trade paperback. Or something. I don't know, but this basically was a Kitty Pryde introduction trade paperback because she's integral to Days of Future Past, and then it's her whole introduction into the team before that, and after was her like getting her confidence and fighting an alien by herself. So it was good. I thought it was fun. It definitely, like I said, every time I picked up I read it on a digital. You read the digital.
Yeah, I read digital too.
So we both read digital copies of this, and every time I opened the app, it was like like in my head. I had a lot of fun with it. So.
Yeah, I felt very nostalgic reading it too, just because like looking at all the bright colors specifically on the page is like very, very much like I remember reading comics.
Exactly, like the cartoon.
Yeah. So. One of the things I noticed in reading it too that was kind of fun was because I guess that was right around the time that ads were a little more prevalent, like in the comics. Like there were a couple pages where it was like on the front of one cover, it was like Toys R Us shopping spree. I was like, oh, that's right, Toys R Us shopping spree. I wanted to do that when I was a kid too.
Oh yeah, I forgot about those.
Oh man, I wanted to do that so bad when I was a kid.
Dude, yeah, I would vision like in my head, like what would I go for first, and then I would watch. There was some.
They had it on TV.
Yeah,
like you could see a kid, and he would just see him.
He'd always run down the fucking Lego aisle. Some stupid bullshit no one wants. Like, I'm going to run down the squirt gun aisle or whatever and get that. It's like, no, dude, go for the cool toys. You got
get the Batman toys, the Star Wars toys,
Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. Get all that shit, especially like the big stuff. But yeah, they never did, and I never won that. And I was sad. I'm a sad child. Not really. That was good.
Horrible childhood just because of that. But anyway, it was cool seeing those. And then one of the things I thought was fun in these, they spoon fed a lot of us as far as at least the beginning to get us up on the story. This is
like the exact opposite of DC, right? It's like the exact opposite of what a DC comic does. Because DC Comics, you'll buy a trade and it'll be like the Green Lantern 25 issues 25 through 40 trade or whatever, and then you read it and there's no setup. There's no anything. They just throw you in the middle of the storyline, and it ends up like, oh, this is the one where he was evil and he, killed a bunch of people, and you have no idea why. You have no idea. They don't set up anything, which I respect somewhat because it's like, you're a real fan, right? You should be. So you should know what's going on right now.
Yeah, we don't need baby. You've been reading.
Maybe you should buy some more comics. You call yourself a comics fan. So that's DC. DC's like the uber nerd who expects you to know all continuity of everything. And then, and Marvel's like, hey, this is your first comic? Cool. Like, let us catch you up with everything you've ever wanted to know about whatever issue this is.
And building on that, that's one of the other things I saw was little, but I like throughout the comic is they're like, it was like little cliff notes. Yeah, like, hey man, yeah, you don't believe that happened. Well, you should go check out issue 162, man. Yeah. It was crazy. You won't believe it. Jeez Louise.
Sign off, Lois.
Yeah.
Or Lewis. I don't know.
That was kind of funny. There was little like cliff notes.
Oh yeah.
Like, go read this comic.
They do that all the time. And that's cool. I like that because one thing, like, it would be nice if they did that in DC sometimes because I would know, oh, I can go check out that issue, or I could go find the trade with that issue in it if it was an older, run. But they don't. Like, you just have to know, oh, yeah, I'm supposed to read like the 4 runs of Superman books from the 90s in order to understand what's going on in Green Lantern now. But they never say that or mention it. So that's the difference between those two companies. Both are kind of fun. After reading enough DC to know certain continuities, I feel like, oh, I'm in the club. It's like a members only club or something if you know DC stuff. But Marvel is just all about, is this your first comic? Well, let me help you, sir. Let me help you read this, madam or sir or child or whoever's reading this stuff nowadays because it's cool now. So, but did you have anything else you wanted to cover?
I was just gonna say in general, like I was saying, feeling a little nostalgic with like the art and seeing like the bright colors. Reminded me of like the cartoon or like when I read comics as a kid because they're very bright and poppy. But one of the things that I notice more now, because especially we've been going back and reading comics from all different times, is some of the shading I don't quite understand actually. Like I understand they're trying to give you depth or if they have multiple characters with similar colors, but some of the colors that they change things to seem completely like so like Blob's suit is all black with a white band across him, right? And then there's one part where I guess Nightcrawler's in front of him, so I get it. Nightcrawler's mainly black too, so they got to have. You would think it's either create an aura-ish around Nightcrawler, but no, they turn Blob's suit almost completely light purple, and it's like I don't know. It just the look of it, and I think that like I said, that's just I was paying attention a little bit to that more than I would have.
Yeah. Well, you know what? This is probably why. Because back in the day, they could only print in like 6 colors or something. Yeah. So everything had to be a certain, if it was black, you can't have 2 blacks over it because you just can't have, nowadays they can just put light around Nightcrawler or whatever and have the sun reflect off him different. Back then you had to, you couldn't do that. So that's probably why they had to do it.
My favorite thing, and I
know what, John, this is that whole white dress, gold dress. Thing, or blue dress or whatever, right? That's what it is.
It's true.
It's actually purple or fuchsia, but then in certain lights it's black. So.
One of the things that I noticed more, and I did remember this, is characters with a black hair or a blue hair. Like they have both of those colors in it. Like you don't have all black hair. It's like black with like little blue lines in it, right. Or in case of like BC's all blue, right, with little black lines in it.
Right, so we can switch it up if we have to. So that seems like they covered themselves probably. But so I guess we should probably. I mean, if you want to rate this as a trade, we can. But what would you give Days of Future Past itself? If
I take out just the context of just that story, I like that a lot, and it definitely, like I said, it told you at the beginning, hey, we're going to kill all your characters. And then it went through with it in some cool ways.
Yeah.
It was fun. It was a good story. I would probably give it I would say a 6.
Okay. Just that one issue.
Yeah, just that one issue. Because if I book it together, I would bump it down probably to a 5.
A 5. Now, keep in mind, you got to put this in context of the 80s. So, like, think of at the time. We're not comparing this to... We're talking about 1980, not the 80s. We're not talking about Dark Knight.
I thought we were comparing it to how we're reading things. And
well, we are, but you have. I mean, you can't read like Little Nemo or something and be like, oh yeah, this is totally as good as something I read today. You have to put it in context.
I want to point this out. This is how I graded it in my grading system.
Okay,
which maybe
all right,
it's maybe different how you feel.
Shut the fuck up. Just
I will say this: I am not grading in the context of A's. I'm going on the scale of what we've had done things
of what you've read, what we've read in this, podcast.
And how John Johnson likes everything, and you grade everything.
You always give everything a 10.
You love it, like the 4th Indiana Jones movie.
John loves the. There is no 4th Indiana Jones movie. And John loves the Hobbit movies and
in general because it's my favorite book ever. Mm-hmm, but anyway,
I love the Hobbit too, but not the movies.
That's a whole nother topic. But anyway, yeah, I think that I enjoyed the story and it was fun, and like I said, it made me feel like a kid with this story because, like I said, all the stuff it brought up. But I was a little wordy going back to having all the bubbles.
And you had to read them because you're like, wait, I'm gonna miss something.
But I enjoyed it. Like, I would read it again. I would definitely like, oh, you want a good X-Men story? Go read this issue.
Just find
like, if you know enough about X-Men, read this one issue.
Right. Go find a reprint of that issue. Go on Comixology and download the digital version of that issue.
Go to your local half-price books
and see if you can
find that comic for $1.99.
A very expensive issue in their back issue.
They don't know what they have.
They don't know what they have. No.
I got they bought comics from me one time because they were signed. As I got a comic book day thing, and they were like, "Oh, these are signed. I'm gonna give you $20."
$400.
Yeah, I was like, okay.
You have Spawn #1. Oh man, and a Death of Superman. Oh man, we'll give you $500 for that. No, they're dumb, but they don't. I don't think they're that dumb though. I don't know. They might not look up that stuff. You would think they would have to though, because if you get a collection of old comics from like the 70s and early 80s or before that, you should definitely look up every issue, because it might be like that had the first issue of Kitty Pryde. It had Days of Future Past in it. So I mean, like, there was two big things in that would have been worth money, I would assume, if you found a good printing of it, a good original non messed up issue of it. So
we're all clamoring. So in context of the 80s in everything that we've read so far as well, like, what did Matt Hansen think of this one?
Wow. Okay. Well, thank you. I appreciate that thoughtful introduction to my grade. So when I rate comics this old, you can't say like, I read, the newest issue of whatever I bought last week, and I'm comparing it to that. All right. Because what you have to do is go, okay, this is the standard for every comic of that time. So every comic had the writer's thought and the character's thoughts and the character's dialogue over the artwork. So it wasn't as bad as like Stan Lee stuff from the 60s, but all of them are like that. There wasn't any comic back then that didn't have that kind of stuff. So you kind of have to grade that on a curve. All right. You son of a bitch. Smiling at me. So I would give this, just that issue, I would give that issue a 7. Like a straight 7.
I love that there's a huge difference between my 6 and 7 and your all.
A 5 and a 6 are like, a 5 was Batman Hush.
Which I thought
that's our lowest graded issue. This story made way more sense of that issue than Batman Hush.
I will agree with that.
And everything made sense. The writing is great. I mean, Chris Claremont is a great writer. So
definitely.
Everything was good. The art was fucking fantastic. The story was fucking fantastic. The only bad thing was of what the time period of where it was written, because that's how comics were written back then. So, I mean, I would put that one issue at a 7 for story and art. For sure, it's up there. And then the trade itself would get a 5, because that's why I'm rating that lower, because I'm like, okay, it was a hard trade to get through, because the first issue of the trade was a whole breakdown of all of X-Men lore up to that point. And then it was like, and in the next issue, I was like, oh man, that was like I already knew all that shit. So, but you didn't know that was what they were doing. I kept thinking it was going to come back to something important, but it never did until issue 2 was the introduction of Kitty Pryde. So, I mean, the trade didn't really need to have those other than to fill space to have a trade paperback or a hardcover book to sell, because you're not just going to print one issue. So I get it, but as a trade, if it was a 5, as a one issue of Days of Future Past, it was a 7. Read that issue; it's a good issue.
Solid 7.
Solid 7. All right. Yeah. And John gave it a fucking 6 because he doesn't understand context. Anyway, I'm just joking. Just joking.
No, it's fine.
I love you, buddy. All right. So I think that's it.
Yeah, I think that's it. Till next time.
Another issue in the can. Bye. Well, folks, hope you enjoyed that episode.
If you did and you'd like to follow us on social media, our Facebook is Planes, Trains, and Comic Books, and our Instagram is @Planes, Trains, and Comic Books, all one word.
And be sure to like, share, and subscribe for more recommendations to add to your weekly pull list.
Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.